Hello and welcome back to another episode of You Want to Do What? Today we've got Paddy on, who is a comedian and a comedy club owner. Hi, Paddy.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. First of all, apologies. This is the second attempt of doing this and all undone by me. Sorry, that's my phone ringing. I'm going to silence that because it will ring all the way through this. Yes, I'm well. I'm well. How are you, Daniel?
Good, yes, all good. It been excited to do this one actually because you've done a few things down near a local pub to me, the Prince of Wales. You put on a few comedy nights that have been great actually.
Well, it's going to get bigger. We've got
Oh,
big plans for that, which I'll tell you about later on.
oh, awesome. Okay.
Remind me, and I'll mention it to you because we're being quite ambitious.
Oh, cool. Okay, look forward to hearing about that. Do you want to jump straight in then and tell everyone a little bit about what you actually do?
So I am a stand-up comic on the UK and international circuit, and I've been doing it. My first gig 2000, in fact, and then I moved out of London into East Hertfordshire and decided the amount of driving I was doing, I wanted to spend more time with my kids. So I opened a little club, tiny little club in an arts centre, and um, renovated a house at the same time which was a bad idea. Nearly didn't bankrupt myself, but worked very hard for the first year, and then once I got the house done, concentrated on the club, and it has just got bigger and bigger. And I've got another club, and I've got another club, and I'm doing more little kind of booking gigs, and now doing little festivals. So it's that's what I do.
Mm.
Yeah.
So how did you get started in this world of comedy then?
I did a degree way back a million years ago in economics at London University, and I never used it. I spent a year in Australia as a cowboy straight after university. Then I came back. I was going to go. I had a desk with a big grain trading company to do their graduate trainee, and the recession of 1990 knocked that in the head, and they got rid of the graduate trainee scheme. And then I was wondering what to do. At university, I'd done some dramatics and acting and a couple of musicals, and absolutely bloody loved it. It was just the biggest fun.
Mm.
And while I was looking for this job to do in 1991, I worked at a theatre at Drury Lane as a kind of butler for VIPs type thing, royal families, all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
And I met lots of actors that were there and what have you. And I auditioned for drama school, and I got in, which was a bit of a shock. And I then thought it's a 2-year course, I might do it. It cost a lot of money back then, and because I'd already used my degree up, I got a full grant. Back in the day of getting full grants, I had to fund it myself. So I went to drama school for 2 years, and every lunchtime I'd write letters to every famous person that I could think of, and would even turn around to anyone in the green room and go, name a famous person. They go, Terry Wogan. And I go, right. And I'd write to Terry Wogan, or, I don't know, anyone. Daniel Day-Lewis. And I'd write to Daniel Day-Lewis, care of his agent. And I got funded through drama school
Oh,
from
wow.
wealthy, successful actors.
Amazing.
John Gielgud, Daniel Day-Lewis, Anthony Hopkins was the main one, Kenneth Branagh.
Anthony Hopkins funded your
Yeah,
drama school.
yeah. He
Wow.
paid me thousands of pounds.
You must be really good at writing letters.
Do you know what? I have, people always say that to me, and they go, what do you write? And I go, I wrote with a fountain pen, and just a letter. I keep it to sort of two sides of it, just a normal, not even A4, just a letter, and obviously I was. Yeah, I got paid. I have a photocopy of Sir John Gielgud's check from Coots, because it was the
Wow.
most beautiful check I've ever seen. And his amazing, is it called copper script or something?
Okay. Yeah,
Like
I think so.
just, and it's Coots. I'd never heard of Coots. I was like, has he got some Mickey
Yeah.
Mouse bank? And then someone told me, oh no,
The
people,
Queen's Bank.
the Queen's Bank. And I was like, what? And yeah, I've got that.
Yeah, how incredible. So
But yeah,
you
so that got me started in drama, and then I was really good at improvisation, and then through all that, and I did loads of plays and a lot of tours of Ireland doing theatre, and which was a lot of fun. Every time I went to Ireland, I play an English person. Every time I was in England, I play an Irish person because I'm Anglo-Irish, and I had a lot of fun. And then a friend of mine who was at drama school with me called Conor Maloney, who is one of the priests in Mrs. Brown's Boys, he stumbled into stand up and did really well, got on the telly and stuff, and he was at me from get go. You must do this. Come on, do this. And I was like, no, I'm doing acting and blah blah blah. Anyway, another friend of mine did it, and he got through to the semi-finals of the Telegraph competition back in the day, and he was like, "You've got to do this. You're funny. You know, you write stuff." And anyway, I went and did a City Lit course with the famous Jill Edwards, and I never looked back. I remember doing my first gig at the Laughing Cavaliers in Islington. I've still got the A4 poster, which is a photocopy with Jared Christmas and a few other people who don't do it anymore on there, and my name written at the bottom in biro. I don't know. And that was Pat Monaghan was on that bill. And I just, the most brilliant and terrifying thing instantly going, I want to do this. I mean, I saw Billy Connolly when I was a kid in Ballymena in Northern Ireland, and that was, and he talked to me as I was having a cigarette outside with a buddy of mine as he came up through the car park, and he took one look at us, basically 14-year-old boys, and said, and he stopped and he came back to us. He said, "Are you having it? Are you come to see the show?" And we went, "Yeah." And he went, "Are you just having a crafty wee fag before you go in and see the folks?" And I was like, how did he know how did he know that? How the hell did that guy know? And I sat in the audience, and it was just the most amazing, absolutely tiny art center in Ballymena that doesn't really do arts, and very Protestant town, and it was just amazing to watch this guy do his magic. That was it. I thought, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I watched his documentary recently. It was on the BBC, and his career was absolutely amazing, wasn't it?
Oh, I've got all his old CDs, and I implore anyone to I mean, his accent's a lot stronger, and he plays the guitar an awful lot, and it's just electrifying to listen to him. It's almost like a fight with the audience.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
So you say you got the buzz as soon as you did it, but
yeah.
I was listening to on the Joe Rogan podcast the other day, and Kevin Hart was on there. Obviously, a massive comedian, and he was talking about like the process of writing your act. And I think most people kind of think comedians are always funny, but there's a process that goes into building your act and making it better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So my experience of it was, I went and did this Jill Edwards course because the friend of mine that did it, and he said, look, the easiest way to do it is do this course. It was at City Lit. It was in Holborn every Tuesday night for an hour, and you go in there and you basically try and write jokes, and she'd give you homework, you come back, and you'd all stand up at the end on a actually, it wasn't even on a stage. You just stand up in a classroom and you just do what you've written, and talk about an absolute bunch of misfits, and some people clinically not well in there doing it, and it's set up punch, toppers, all that sort of thing, and she said to me at the end, this is really good because you everything you write is like this format, you write that way, and so one of the things, she showed us a little video, and it was back in the day, a video of different comics and what have you, and we discussed them, and I remember mentioning who are your idols, and I said Billy Connolly, and she went, technically not a stand-up. And I went, what are you talking about? She said, he's a storyteller. If you watch his set, he does interweaves, comes back to a story and then goes away again, then comes back to it again. So I was really cross with her because she wouldn't let me have Billy Connolly in that. But I remember she played Joe Brand, and still one of my favorite jokes was she's standing on stage, and, Joe Brand got a lot of grief for her image. And as Jill would say, work with what the audience see first. It's the easiest. And Joe Brand stood up and said, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, I'm not feeling very well. What was it? I'm not feeling very well. I've spilt my dinner down the front, and I've got a bit of a cold, and my parents weren't very attractive. And I just remember hearing that and going, that is a beautiful joke. And, you know, and you'd hear jokes. She would show, it's so interesting because back then you go to comedy clubs as much as you could and you'd see people, but you'd always have a few beers and you could never remember I could never remember what they said the next day. And I just would love it. And then but in this cold light of sober in a classroom, which she'd show you something and then go, right, let's dissect what that person said. And you go, oh my God, this is set up, punchline, topper, set up, punchline, topper. And she went, that's, you know, forget what you're doing. So we try and do that, and it was really difficult. And then one of her techniques was rant and rave, where you get a dictaphone and you'd rant for 3 minutes, and you'd start off by saying, I hate, like, choose squirrels, and then you go, I hate squirrels because they're stupid tails. And you just keep saying, I hate squirrels, and then ad-libbing bits why you didn't like them. And anytime you're stuck, you kept saying, I hate squirrels, I hate squirrels, I hate squirrels because they look like gangsters. I hate squirrels because the way they think they're dinosaurs with the little arms at the front and their big back legs. You're not a Tyrannosaurus Rex. You're a fucking squirrel. Just sort yourself out. Don't be a prick, you know. And you'd keep saying this until you'd done to 3 minutes. Then you'd play it back, and in the classroom you'd play it back, and where people laughed, that was the joke. Simple as that. And then you go, the line before, that's your setup. And if there's a line after the laughter, that was a topper. And you go, see that, and it was a very good way of finding out if you were funny, if you're just ranting. And I've still got tapes of my. I did this long thing about the fruit bowl, about why I hate fruit going off in the fruit bowl, and I really got into it, and I did it a couple of times, and I'd written all these jokes out and that sort of thing, and I did it, and everyone thought it was really, really funny. And then she went, "That is really funny, but you've obviously been watching Eddie Izzard." And I went, "No," and she went, "Really?" And I went, "No." And she went, "That's Eddie. Eddie Izzard has got a routine about fruit going off in a fruit bowl." And I went, I genuinely haven't seen that routine. And she said, "Well, you can't use it because it's already been done." And, you know, fair play. I went, "Oh God, absolutely. I mean, Eddie Izzard, I'm not going to try to pretend to be." So we'd lots of techniques like that. I worked as a paralegal in the City of London, and I used to rant into a dictaphone and then give it to this very nice secretary who put on her headset and type it out. And I think by the time I left that job, she thought I was mentally ill because I kept giving her these, you know, 3 minute long, you know, I hate avocados, or, you know, I hate, I can't remember, you know, I hate clouds, or I don't know, I hate my landlord.
There's always that line with comedians, isn't there? You're on the edge of being a little bit mad.
I think that, you know, psychologists would have a field day about comics and what, you know, who wants to be center of attention in a room, everyone looking at you and what you say, and, you know, all that narcissism, which is definitely there, but also the difficulty of being a stand-up and the low money and the amount of work you put in for what little reward, I think automatically means you're mentally ill to be pursuing this career. You know, your overriding desire where you just have to get on that stage is got to be bigger than the sum of all the negatives of being a comic. And the only thing that I can conclude from that is you're either very ambitious, any of or all of these, ambitious, narcissistic, self-centered, self-important person, you know, or for me, genuinely the happiest place I am, which is on stage, just telling jokes and especially improvising around something. It's just an amazing drug.
It seems terrifying. Like, the idea of getting up in front of a group of people and bombing must be your number one fear.
Oh, I mean, that's what drives you. If you've ever died and then you decide to go on and keep doing comedy, a lot of people drop out at that point because it is just the most achingly awful moment of their life. It is everyone's worst nightmare, and it is as painful as anyone could ever think it would be. And the walk back to the tube station, having died, is it's just soul destroying. But the other side of that is so immense. You know, I've never done heroin, but friends of mine have, and you know, they say heroin's better than your best gig. And I thought, I'm never doing heroin because I couldn't cope with that. I just couldn't cope with that, you know.
Yeah. But for someone who's sort of thinking about this or doing it as a career, I know we talked about you writing jokes and you can learn the process, but do you have to, in a certain way, be naturally funny to be a really good comedian, or is it something you can work super hard at and develop the funny?
I think I'd liken it to a good athlete, where you get pretty ordinary people who can run at 10 kilometers quite well. And, you know, in your town, you might be the best in the town and what have you, and you're naturally gifted. If you do a lot of training, you're going to improve. And I think stand-up comedy is muscle work. You've got to work on it. If you rely on just your natural ability to be funny, you're not going to get very far. You need to do three gigs a week, constantly writing, and having an eye to improve. And I for some reason, when I started off, I was looked very relaxed on stage, and had a very easy patter with my stuff. And it wasn't particularly brilliant, but everyone could kind of relax and go, this guy looks like he knows what he's doing, which is, you know, that's what an audience wants. And so I got people saying, how long have you been gigging in Ireland? And I go, I haven't. I'm just starting, you know. And it was always surprised people. And I got some really big gigs booked early on. And I remember going on stage at Comedia. Stephen Grant had seen me MC for a Mirth Control gig way in the West Country, and he phoned me up and he said something like, "Do you want to know the good news?" And I went, "What's that?" And he said, "I really liked your MCing on Saturday." And I went, "Oh, thanks very much." And he said, "Do you want to know the bad news?" And I said, "What?" And he went, "I'm going to offer you a night of MCing at Comedia." I had no idea what Comedia was. I didn't know. It's a brilliant club in Brighton, for those who don't know. Crater Comedy in the Comedia Theatre. And I went down there, and there were 2 shows, and he offered me £200. This is back in, I can't think of what year it was, been 2003 maybe, or something like that.
Good money.
And I was like, wow. And I went down there, and there was a lovely guy, no longer with us, called Jack Russell, who was on, and Ian Stone, and I can't remember who else. Might be Dominic Frisby. And I remember sitting in the green room with Ian Stone, and everyone's chatting to me, you know, basically sussing you out, because they hadn't really met me before. And I remember Ian Stone saying, "So you've come over here to try and do some comedy?" I went, "No, I live over here. I've been living over here for years." And he said, "So how many years have you been gigging?" And I could tell the alarm in his voice already. And I went, "Oh, you know, about a year and a bit." And he just was like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, this is going to be a car crash."
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And he just got up and left the green room.
Oh.
And I remember sitting there going, "Oh, that's a bit rude. Shit." Jesus, that's. And Jack Russell obviously went to speak to Jack Russell. Jack Russell came in and said, "Paddy, have you been going just over a year?" And I went, "Yeah." And he went, "Well, how have you got this gig?" And I went, "I don't know. Stephen saw me and just booked me in." And he went, "Okay, do you mind if I give you a few pointers?" And he gave me a few pointers. And by that stage, I was shitting myself.
I was going to say, if you're in the green room just chilling out and these 2 comedians are going, "Oh my God, what have you let yourself in for?"
Yeah.
Already being nervous, you must have been like, "Shit, how do I get out of here?"
Well, initially I was really, really excited. I turned up and getting 200 quid, and I thought, well, Stephen Grant thinks I can do this, you know, and I did it clearly on Saturday. Well, I'll just do what I did. And then they go, you understand, this is not a little, you know, whatever it was, a tiny room above a pub or something in Yeovil or something, wherever it was. But when Stephen saw me, he went, "There are 200 and something people out there, hen nights, stag nights, you know, it's just," and they gave me, I'm telling you what they said, "Just do your jokes, keep it light. If ever you're stuck, just bring one of us on," or something like that, you know, something. And I remember going out, and the first gig was fine. You know, I didn't get booed. I didn't get shouted at. I didn't get booed off. People laughed. It was okay. I wouldn't say, you know, in hindsight, where I am now was no brilliant thing, but it was enough. And then when we got to the second show, the later show, I remember Ian Stone couldn't even look at me. Couldn't even look me in the eye. And Jack said, well done. This is different. They're a lot more drunk. It's a lot more gladiatorial. And I remember like, gladiatorial? What the? Anyway, so I went out there, and in the first 10 minutes, I had used up all my jokes.
Oh,
Absolutely every single. And I'd rattle through them because I was like, Jesus, these guys are. And some of my jokes are slightly more required. Don't be pissed and don't be late night audience for them. You know what I mean?
mm.
And I remember I got into a kind of row with some hen party or something, and it was pretty horrible. And I just managed not to completely fuck up everyone's night, I think. But I remember driving back feeling like I just swerved away from a massive car pile up behind me in the motorway and managed to slip through. And I'm looking in the rearview mirror going, I nearly died there. Anyway,
how do you begin to sort of learn how to deal with hecklers? Because that's part of the job, right?
I think what you need to do is you need to watch other comics and massively observe other comics. You meet some comics who are a bit cool and go, oh, I never watch anyone else. And when people are older and they're, been gigging for 20 years or something like that, sometimes you're doubling up. You don't get to see many of the comics. But when you're younger, you just go to gigs. And when you're not gigging, you go to gigs. And when you're at that gig, you stay and you watch everyone, because there's so much to learn when you start off, because there's no manual about how to deal with hecklers. But when you watch other people lose their temper with a heckler, or handle it badly, or say just the wrong tact on a fight with a heckler, because ultimately a heckler heckles you and you're funny and make a fool of them, but you're funny. That's you're funny. Don't get cross with them. Don't get angry. Don't have a hissy fit, because that's just, you've lost control. You're there for one reason, that's to be funny, and you just be funny. And the answer to everything on stage is be funny or be funnier. That's your gig is not going well, be funnier.
Yeah.
And
sorry, and sort of what is an average day for a comedian then? What are you doing? Is it working on your material, gigging? How does it work?
So when I first started off, you used to get Time Out magazine, and the Time Out magazine comedy section was big, and you'd look through that, and you'd have open spot nights, and there'd be a phone number in there, and you'd write them down, and you go to your first gigs. The first gig after the Laughing Cavaliers was the King's Head in Crouch End, run by Peter Graham, and it did the Thursday night, I think it is, where it's new material night, and you go there with all the other nervous people who've never been on stage before, and you're doing your set, and this is a set that you've written and honed, and you do it the first time, and you record it and you play it back, because you'll never remember. It's such a rabbit in the headlights job when you're up on stage, and you play it back, and the gig can go better or worse than you thought it was, and you hear the audience reaction, and where they laugh, that was a joke, and when they didn't laugh, get that out of there, just cut it out. So you're constantly editing that set, and your first 5 minutes is really difficult to write, and then after your 5 minutes, say you write another 2 minutes worth of material, that doesn't necessarily mean you've got 7 minutes. It means you take away your worst 2 minutes for the previous 5 minutes and you add that in. So there's a lot of substitution goes on. And I remember chatting to Hal Cruttenden, because I was booked I was doing tens, and then Peter Graham said, right, I'm booking you to come on Saturday and to do a paid slot. And it was a couple of weeks away or something like that. And I was like over the moon. And then I'd been to see a Saturday night there where everyone did 15 minutes, and I spoke to other comics, and they went, yeah, you'll have to do 15. And I remember phoning Peter up and going, Peter, I don't have 15. Whichever way I cut it. I mean, I've got 15, but it's not 15 that I do. He said, how long have you got? And I went, I think I've got about 12, but 2 minutes of that's pretty shit, And he had seen me do, open spots and new material nights, and he said, I trust you, just come down, do what you want to do. And I was like, no, I'm not ready, I need to pull. And he insisted, so I came along, and I remember being in the green room, the most nervous I'd ever been, and I remember him putting his hand on my shoulder and going, you all right? And I went, Peter, I think it's it's really the bit 10. And he went, do 10, and if it's good, do the other two, whatever, something like that. And I went on and I did, I think, about 11 and a half minutes. And when you're a comic, it's obsessive about how many minutes you do. It's 11 minutes, 20 seconds. And last week I did 11 minutes, 40 seconds, because, you really want to have a joke every 15 seconds, a punchline. So
every 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unless you're building up to, and then you've really got them in your palm of hand, and you might go a minute before a punchline. But, some clubs, people used to be very drunk and their attention span wasn't that long. And you are asking them to wait 30 seconds for a punchline? No, that's dangerous. Way too much of a gap for a heckler. And then you're obviously following other comics. Like if you're the middle spot, classically, that's where you put the weakest act. And you're following someone who's opened and kicked the arse out of it. And then you go on and you're going to do 30 seconds between punchlines? Nah, forget it. You need to do 15 max,
Wow.
And so you just become obsessive about watching other comics, about how their technique. Oh, I see what you did there. And there's a thing of if you're ever in a comedy club and some of the comics come out of the green room to watch the other comics from the back of the room or the side of the room, just glance at them. They are not laughing. They are never laughing. They're watching, observing, just just going, oh, I see what you did. Yeah. The only time they comics laugh is when the comic on stage gets heckled and they're or hit a rough patch, or someone does something and everyone will go, oh, I want to see this. People, you can be backstage and you'll be chatting amongst yourselves and you just hear the rhythm of a comic on stage, and the set up, punchline, laugh, set up, punchline, laugh, set up, punchline, laugh, set up, punchline, no laugh. Comic says something, no laugh. Comic says something, no laugh. People automatically go, hello, what's happening? And then they say something else, still no laugh. And if it gets to about 35, 40 seconds, we're like, what the fuck's going on? And you'll leave the room to go and see what the hell is going on. And something has gone wrong, because there's just no way. This is no way.
Wow.
It's a rhythm to it. There's a rhythm. It's like a comedy farce. When you do, used to do a lot of comedy farces on stage, and there's a rhythm to getting an audience to laugh, and they laugh and they calm down, and they laugh and they calm down, and then you might hit three big laughs in a row, and you've tired them out, and then you might go slightly longer with a bit, might be 20 seconds or 25 seconds, but
that's incredible. And how often are you gigging then?
So I was speaking to Hal Crumpton today, and he accused me of being a bit of a part-time comic at the minute, because I'm booking a lot more of my own clubs and doing that sort of thing. So pre-lockdown, I say I was gigging twice a week, maybe 3 times a week. Whereas in say 2000 and 2000 around about 2014, 15, I would have been gigging 5 nights a week.
Wow. So is that what you need to, when you start out in this, you need to gig as much as you can?
You need to gig. I'd say if you want to tread water with your set, you gig 3 nights a week. Less than that, you're getting unfit. Really, if you want to really improve, it's 5 nights a week. And some of that, because the landscape of comedy's changed. Back when I started out, there were lots of open mic clubs and lots of weekend clubs, and you could gig just like crazy. It was just brilliant. And now there are just less gigs. So you'd end up, all the new night materials at up the backyard. I just always say to them, I book 3 in or 4 or 5, whatever it is, a year, probably actually more than that. And I always say to them, anyone drops out, call me. Anyone drops out, I'll be there. And the same with the King's Head. I'll just frequently just call Peter up and go, Peter, I just need to go on stage. I've got some new material. And the usual, I'm fully booked, but turn up and let's see what happens. You turn up and nearly always someone drops out and you go on stage. And you've got to be prepared to do that. You've got to be obsessive's too strong a word, but you've got to be incredibly focused.
That leads nicely into sort of some of the sort of desirable personality traits that somebody would need to be really successful as a comedian.
I think you've got to be ambitious with it. I can think of quite a few comics. They're absolutely brilliant, just sublime. When I was starting off, where you'd go, wow, I wish I could do that. And they're either naturally funny and they relied on that too much and they didn't put the work in and they just dropped away, or they didn't want it enough. You've got to really, really want it. There's a lot of comics that say, there's basically nothing else I can do. Well, that's a balls, because anyone can, drive an Uber or do whatever. But when you're young and, it's almost like you feel there's nothing else I can do. I never went and used my degree, and I never, and I had lots of friends from university who were working in the city, saying, I'll get you a job tomorrow, and I just didn't want to do it. I just thought, no, I want to be an actor and a stand-up. And I'm talking about earning peanuts when you start off. Jesus, just awful. I mean, so you've got to have that incredible drive. And then I think for longevity, you've got to have the ability to exercise like an athlete and go, I'm going to write for an hour or two a day. And I go through cycles of writing. I went through a whole period there of lockdown, just because we're coming up to Christmas and we're slightly coming out. I was getting up at 6 before my kids and family got up, and I'd write for 2 hours. And I found it really, really productive. And you've got to do that. You watch other comics, might be Netflix or whatever. And you know what? Get a notepad out. Because the amount of times I don't get a notepad out and I sit and watching something and I go, oh my God, that was really good. You're not stealing material. It just springs. Someone mentioned something about Antarctic and penguins. And that makes you think about, that time I went to the zoo and I was at the penguins did that. No, it's a completely different joke setup, but it just makes you, it's a catalyst.
Yeah. Have you got any tips for people who are, how do you write? Is it different for everyone, or have you got a process that you stick to?
I've tried to read comedy books on how to write, because you do hit purple. Is a purple patch a bad thing or a good thing? I can never remember which one it is, but
no idea.
You had a dry patch and you're going, I just can't write. And I think the first thing is, if you go to open mic nights, before you've even lifted a pen, you've probably been to see stand-ups. Now, forget about seeing, big stand-ups on TV. It's always good. That's always, always good. But you want to go to see the open mic nights and see people, see how not to do it as much as how to do it. I think by that stage you've got, I got something that might be funny. And rather than trying to be formulaic and write something, you might just want to see, when you watch other people, you suddenly see a niche for yourself coming in. So you end up going on stage and doing really bizarre stuff, but record every single gig you do. And because what happens is, it's interesting, I found an old tape. This is back then when you used C90 tapes, and I recorded my sets, and I'm Eddie Izzard. I listen to it now and go, I'm trying to be Eddie Izzard. I wasn't trying to consciously back then.
Yeah.
But I go, that's Eddie Izzard. And then you play something a year later and you go, oh, no, this is different. And so your comedy voice, as they call it, your persona, I think it finds you as much as you go looking for, if you sit down and go to clubs, see what's funny, certain things make you laugh more than others, it'll influence you. You go back, you write some stuff. Well, if he's doing that or she's doing that, it means I could do this. And you try it out and that gets a laugh. You go, oh, that got a laugh. And you try another bit out, doesn't get a laugh. You try it out 3 times and then you chuck it. It's not going to work.
It's a
Um,
proper art form, isn't it? It sounds like a real process and years of hard work to really to make it. You know, we see comedians that make my I can't speak may pop up on the TV, and it looks like they've had it over success overnight. But reality is they'd have put years of hard work in, right?
oh yeah, I mean, I remember being down at the King's Head on the new material night, and I was comparing because I do a lot of that down there because he always needs to compare, and I always need to do new material. So there we go. And I remember being down there and Sean Walsh being on stage, and he was amazing. I was like to Peter, this guy's brilliant, and he went, he said he's been here a few times. He is very good. And I remember Sean coming off, and I went up to him, and bearing in mind most people are awful at these new material nights, and I went up to him and I went, mate, that was absolutely brilliant. And he went, oh, thanks very much. And they said, look, I'm really sorry, but I've got to go because I live down in Brighton. I went, oh, right. He said, yeah, I need to get the train back because I've got work in the morning. Now, that is a comic who's living in Brighton, doing a day job, getting on a train, coming to London. And anyone who knows Crouch End ain't easy to get to. You've got to get a bus at the far end, doing a new material night, and then leaving early to go back and get the train back. Now, that says everything you need to know about someone who wants to succeed. And then I remember I did a gig in a cinema. God, it was years ago. And I do this all the time with names. Kevin Bridges. Kevin Bridges was on, and I'd never met Kevin before, and he was doing the middle slot, and he went up, and he was brilliant. I absolutely loved him. The audience weren't having any of it because his Glaswegian accent was so strong. I said to him, he came off and he was mortified. He went, that was fucking terrible, Paddy. And I went, well, mate, I said, it wasn't. I said, come on. I said, has that set worked before? And he went, yeah, it normally works. And I go, there you go. It's not you, it's them. It's your I think it's your accent. I genuinely think they couldn't understand your accent. I don't know. But there's a Glaswegian guy who had such a unique voice doing the middle slot for like peanuts. I mean, I can't remember how much he would have been getting paid for that. Wasn't very much at all. But again, traveling to, I think we were in somewhere near Bristol or something, and he was living in London, and he was having a hard time going, I'm living in London, sleeping on it. And I don't know if it was a sofa, but it was somewhere pretty, not very good. And, but sacrifices, huge sacrifices. Everyone just makes massive sacrifices to do it.
So how did you get from the world of being in the, a stand-up comedian into deciding to, I'm going to start my own club, and then, getting the comedians to come to your club, and how did that all come about?
Well, I did my degree in economics, and I read The Economist, and I read a lot of that stuff. And when the 2008 banking crisis happened and austerity kicked in, and it was bloody awful time for everyone, I remember thinking, comedy is still the cheap person's night out, the cheap night out for any person. And I thought back then that people will stop going to high end, the people are, austerity is going to really kick in. I said, I remember thinking we've probably got 2 years, 3 years before, really kicks in this austerity. So it ain't gonna be pretty. And at that time, I remember fuel prices were going up, rents and everything was going up, and our wages were staying the same, which was stagflation. And I remember thinking, this is a recipe for disaster. I'm driving to gigs, instead of it costing me 20 quid, it's costing me, 35 or something like that. And that's a massive dent in your earnings. And I moved out of London, and when I was living in London, you car shared, and the joy of car sharing with other comics to a gig and back again is just joy. You do the gig together, you come back, you're just chatting the whole way, swapping stories. Some people very few comics actually, but some choice ones that I know, you just throw a bit of material around and go, I'm trying out this, and they go on, do it tonight, and you do it, and they'd be going, go on, and it sometimes die in its hole. And you'd only do in a paid set, maybe 2 or 3 little jokes just to test them out, because it's unfair. someone paying you money and you go up there, do a whole 10 minutes of new material. It's shite. But so I moved out of London. I lost my car share. The fuel prices have gone up. And I remember doing gigs and going, oh my God, I'm really earning a lot less than I was. And I was trying to earn back. I moved out in 2011. I was trying to earn a minimum of £600 a week.
Okay.
That was my minimum. And I remember it going up sometimes, you know, you get 700 or 800. Some other weeks it would go down to 450. You know, and really working hard to try and keep this money together. So the fuel price thing really affected me. So when I came out of Bishop Stortford without having a car share, I remember going, the logical thing here to do is open a club. So I opened a little club. Like I say, first year didn't. It's first year we did 10 gigs, and I got a friend to help me with the bookkeeping, and they went, congratulations, you made £900 for the year on that gig. And that's 10 Friday nights I'd taken out loss in earnings. And then to add insult to injury, about a month later, I found £300 worth of invoices we didn't include. So it means we made even less. And then it spurred me on to go, right, I'm going to really work on this. And I did all sorts of weird stunts. I stood on roundabouts and at the rush hour at kind of traffic jam points dressed as Evel Knievel, saying with a sign saying, who am I? Hashtag comedy this Friday, you know, to get a friend of mine was a marketing guy behind Just Eat. And he said, what you need to do is what Domino Pizzas do every time they open a new comedy club, is to get someone standing on the busiest roundabout with the biggest queue with a sign saying Domino's opening next Friday or something like that. And that means people driving to work and go, oh, did you see that bloke standing in the rain or the snow or the whatever it was, you know. And then I did that. I dressed as one of the Thundercats. God, which one was it? Shit, I can't remember. Saying, who am I? And hashtag for a Twitter thing and what have you. And one of the things I'd read somewhere is I put a spelling mistake in, you know, and I put crap commute with one M, meaning that people would see that. And everyone was taking photographs of me because it was snowing. It was 7 o'clock in the morning and I've got comedy this Friday and I'm standing there in the freezing cold and people are kind of laughing and jeering and going, oh, you loser and all that sort of stuff, and taking photographs and sharing it and going, you're the loser. You're doing my marketing for me.
Yeah. Free marketing. Thank you.
Free marketing. And then I do all these sort of little taglines with a spelling mistake so people would share it. And that's when the club turned around and we started selling out. And we did food. My wife cooked a chili, which then would sell out. That made an extra 350 quid Friday night.
Love a good chili.
Out. And yeah, all sorts of, you know, just worked really, really hard at it. And all the people working in the club were volunteers. And so I started making money at that and then realized this is, you know, one Friday a month. Jesus, I'm making, you know, a lot of money. I'm making, you know, $2,000.
Wow.
From one Friday.
Wow. One Friday.
Yeah.
Jesus. So you got the bug then to open some more clubs.
Yeah, it's opened another one and that did the same. And then I'm just opening another one at the minute. And this is what I kept saying to comics. I said, look, and there was whinging about not having any money and oh God, the gig money has gone down, not in real terms, but, you know, also nominal terms. And so, and I'd say, open a club, just open a club. And I will tell you, I will help you. I'll give you a blueprint. I will phone me up. I'll tell you all the things not to do because I made so many mistakes. And I've now got a blueprint of how to open a club that will make you thousands of pounds every gig. And so my gigs, I pay more than the Comedy Store. So to my comics, I've triple headliners. I feed them. I water the comics. You know, when they leave, I fill their pockets full of crisps and M&Ms and all sorts of shit for the journey and the way back. I now do a 2-camera record of every gig we do and upload those 2-camera and a clean audio onto OneDrive and give it to the comics afterwards and say, fill your boots. If you want to do any links or edits or anything like that, just tag us in with the club, and do that.
Wow.
And
So
you'd be surprised.
you're giving the comedians incentives to come and do your gigs over other people's.
Yeah, yeah, just to go, look, you wouldn't believe how many comics don't use that OneDrive.
Oh,
And
really?
I've got H2 camera, high, what do you call it, HD recording, clean audio.
And they're not using it for their own
And
material.
there are a few comics that have used it, but these are the comics that you'll notice on social media that are all over it.
Yeah.
I mean, Rory O'Hanlon is just, I mean, he's a great comic anyway, but he is single-handedly doing a fantastic self-promotion. And I'd say to any comic, just look up Rory O'Hanlon. He's just amazing.
I saw at your one of your nights at the pub, we saw a guy called Brennan Reese.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He is brilliant. He's so funny.
Yeah.
And his Instagram's great. And is that something that comedians nowadays need to be more aware of, building up followings on social media to help build their own brand?
Definitely. I think this is the way for. I mean, you look at Mo Gilligan. Mo Gilligan did everything on Instagram, and next thing you know, I was walking the West End, and he's got, I can't remember which theatre it was where he was doing a gig, and I remember going, "Who's this guy, Mo Gilligan?" Of course, I'm 53, so I'm a dinosaur. I've no idea. I don't really do Instagram. I've got Instagram. I put stuff up there and what have you, but and all these little things that he did. Look, he's very talented and he's very funny. Let's just get that out there straight away. So he's just not just some guy with an Instagram account, but he did that entirely off the back of that, and you'd never see him in a club anywhere, So he built that. Sorry, someone's at my door. Hang on,
no worries.
How many minutes are you going to be?
I don't know. I'm doing a little podcast. You go away. Go away. Podcast is a thing, right?
Okay.
I'll see you in a minute. Right. Sorry, that's it's my little 9-year-old girl. How many minutes are you going to be? So I definitely, absolutely, definitely, and any younger comic who's coming up who's can get their head around Instagram, and I mean that's where you build your following, and you go viral, and you go, but I mean, it's a very crowded market space. But if you're funny, because as we know, there's a lot of shit on social media, Instagram, that just isn't funny.
Yeah,
it's totally
very true. Very true. For you, what's the biggest sort of positive or opportunity you've had out of this whole sort of comedian career and as a club owner?
I think for me, mental happiness.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It's just for me, above, the money. I mean, because when you start off and you're doing gigs and you're just happy to be there gigging and you're being paid. And then a little bit later on, I'm passionate now about when I walk now that I run a gig and I do the bar and we do the food, and I walk into a room and I see how big it is and they're doing all those things, I know how much money's in that room. And then when I see promoters turn around and pay comics 100 quid for that room, and they say, "Oh, but we don't get the bar, or we don't get the food," and I go, well, someone does. This is really unfair. This is really, really unfair. So I get a great, I book my friends to come along to do what they like to do in hopefully the best environment there is for doing comedy, because I'm obsessive about the lights, about the sound, about the way people are seated, the way people are, brought in to experience the comedy. I'm just ridiculously annoying with my crew about how good that experience for the punter is, right down to the wine we sell, right down to the food we sell, right down to the seats they sit on, the angles. So when the comic goes on that stage, they're going to go, wow, this audience is amazing. I want my friends to go, Paddy, that was great. That was a really good room. And so my rooms are known to be just amazing to play. And then we sit in the green room with your friends and you have a chat and you eat some chili, and and that for me is is really, I just love it. I just love it.
And on the flip side of that, what's something that's a negative of the industry?
A negative of the industry is agents. There are some great agents out there, and some really bad agents. Some of them are really difficult to deal with. Really difficult to deal with. When you just want to deal with a comic that and they kind of refer you to their agent, and you just go, Jesus, this is not going to happen. And they're going, but I want to do it. And they go, it's just not your agent. Anyway, that's tricky. That's really boring. The traveling is killer. I won't make any bones about that. The travel is, when you're starting off and you're driving. When I was doing all this, when I first started off, I remember being a paralegal, then I stopped doing that, and then I started renovating houses with an actor friend of mine. So we were up crack of dawn, ripping out bathrooms and putting kitchens in and all that sort of shit, just 2-man band. And that, we'd finish work at sort of 4:45, and I'd get in my car and drive to Birmingham and come back.
And go and renovate houses in Birmingham?
Oh, no. So I'd be renovating houses in North London, and then during the day, and then in the evening, my friend would go, "What are you doing?" And I'm off to Birmingham. And he'd go, "What?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm doing a gig for like 40 quid or something."
Oh, wow.
And he'd go, "What? Well, don't be late in the morning." I was always late. I was exhausted. And so you do a gig, you'd be full of adrenaline, you'd get in the car, you drive back from Birmingham, sometimes even further, and you'd have adrenaline and then coffee to stay awake, and then the amount of near-death experiences off the trail, genuinely rumble strips and into grass verges and just falling asleep at the wheel. And then so you take caffeine to stay awake, and then you'd arrive home, guess what, full of caffeine, and then you'd be 2:00 and you're getting up in 5 hours. You're doing that how many nights a week.
Yeah.
So and then with the travel, I'd make packed lunches because I just didn't have enough money, and you're just eating rubbish food, and it's pretty. I used to smoke back then as well, and really hard, really hard work. The traveling, but if you got a car share, absolute lifesaver. You'd keep each other awake. As the expression, they give good car. That means something to comics.
Got it. At this point, we usually talk about the average income for the industry, but it's pretty much impossible to sort of find any figures anywhere about comedians' average income. And it's probably really fair to say that it varies so wildly. The guys at the top, they can be earning millions. And like you said already, the guys at the bottom are just barely sort of making enough to live on. Is that kind of fair?
Yeah, I'd say now that any comic, even comics that are like, I'm in my 50s and been doing it since 2000, are realistically have a second source of income, whether that be writing or editing or doing something, because the money's not in the circuit anymore. But you could be working, back in the day, you do 2 gigs on a Saturday night, 2 on a Friday, and if sometimes you do 3. And back before I did it in the 80s, people were doing like 5 in London. They were doing, and it was all cash in hand, and it was all that sort of. Nowadays, it's all, you'll be getting, you see headline gigs for 150 quid, and it's backs. And you sometimes get 200 quid, 250, 300, but those are, you're chasing far fewer bigger paid gigs. And if you're opening somewhere, a lot of the promoters know this, and they'll go, okay, if you're going to open, and you're doubling somewhere else, they'll go, it's 100 quid. And you go, come on, that should be 150, 60, 70, 80, 90, whatever. So it's really, really, really shit the way people have priced stuff. A lot of promoters just make their ticket price cheap. And I don't understand that. Once you start a cheap ticket price, you're always stuck with a cheap ticket price.
Yeah.
Just sell quality, people will come. My ticket price for my clubs are really expensive, and I make no bones about it.
Well, that's it. If you attract the comedians that merit that cost, right?
Yeah, and you pay people. At the minute, the gigs that I'm booking at the minute are because once we're out of lockdown and we can get back to normal, you know, there'll be £200, 220, £240 a set for everyone, with food and drinks and everything else in between, you know, something. But I think realistically, back in the day when you'd earn £1,000 a week, that's really hard to maintain. And even then, like the really, really, really good comics, circuit comics, are finding it hard to maintain.
So you've got to almost have a second form of income or something on the side to warrant you being able to do this as a career now.
Yeah, and I would say, and this is my model, if I was prime minister, I would go, every comic, you have to open a club in the town where you live or nearby. And obviously, if everyone lives in London, that's slightly more difficult. But if you live in Leamington Spa, open a gig in Leamington Spa. If you live in Yeovil, open on Yeovil. If you know, and lots of comics are doing. Jared Christmas runs one. He moved out way west. He does a little gig out there in an art center. And it's hard work and the admin's killer. But if you want to do the bar and the food, that's when it gets complicated. But it's so rewarding. Financially, the town loves you. The people. I mean, I go in my town here. My kids think it's hilarious that they go, "You're famous," because everyone knows you. I don't know them. We went to an open garden day at some lodge, Eastern Lodge or whatever it's called, and three of the volunteers at this place went. I was wearing glasses and a cap. Went, "I recognize your voice. Oh, it's you, Paddy. Oh, I come to your comedy club, blah, blah, blah." And my kids and some other friends were with us going, "Jesus Christ." And I went, "Oh, don't worry, this is a small pond."
But that's nice.
Yeah, it's very nice. But the amount of people, I'm buying vegetables from a stall up, just in a village close to here. And the guy goes, "I come to your gigs, by the way. I really, really like them." And it's just lovely.
That's cool.
And they do. And genuinely, if you live somewhere, even travel 50 miles to a place where there's not a comedy club, go to the town hall and hire it and start a comedy club. They will come. They will come. I mean, it's just not rocket science.
No.
People are dying for entertainment. And if you're really lazy, do it in a venue that already has a bar, like some, and they'll do the bar, they'll take the money, and you don't pay for the hire because you just brought 150 people in, but you take the door. And you pay the comics really, really well. And we all pay each other £220 a gig. And I keep saying this to everyone. That's the model. And when it gets better, you pay them a bonus. So when we sell out, I pay a bonus on top of that.
It sounds like if a lot more comedians did that, then they'd be helping the industry itself as well.
Yeah. And I think, look, no one's going to help us because we're commercial.
Yeah.
You have this in the arts world where commercial theatre does it really, really well and earns money, and arts-funded theatre, semi-empty, relies on grants, doesn't do very well. And you think, we just need to be more commercially minded. And I'm afraid to say, you have to work hard.
Yeah.
Comics are surprisingly lazy. We talk about how hard they're to do, but really during the week, what the fuck were you doing? Come on, even if you wrote for 3 hours a day, or 4 hours or 5 hours, that's still only, and then you came to the weekend, you did some gigs. Come on, who are you fucking kidding? But that is the only way out.
And I guess the sort of last question we always ask is, would you still go into this industry knowing everything you know now?
Oh God, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you found your absolute love.
Yeah, I think I'd say to a younger me, I should have worked harder at it. I think I found it easy on stage to be funny, and I remember, I can't quite remember what Gary Delaney said, but he talked about it, saying, you're the worst type of comic because you just don't, like Gary Delaney and I started off at the same time, and he was such a nice guy and so helpful. He had lists of all the gigs, which he shared with me, and he had a spreadsheet of when he phoned them back, when they were giving him a 10-minute spot, when they were giving him a 15-minute spot, and he was like, "You've got to be forensic with this." And he was the one that taught me, "You've got to be forensic with this." But he'd be the first to admit that not naturally a funny guy, but and on stage when he first started off would have almost an asthma attack with nerves and what have you, but just relentlessly the best joke writer and works 9 to 5, just writing jokes. And he is where you'd want to aim. And I wish that I'd just been a little bit more diligent when I started off. I started 2000, and then my first kid was born in 2000. Oh, this is shit. Oh, how old are my kids? 2002. And then one born in 2005, and then one born in 2009. And that's really hard. And I'd say if you're doing comedy, get it all done before the kids arrive, because you're going to be traveling and you don't want to be missing a Saturday with the kids, because that really killed me. That really, really, really killed me. Because I love to go out and get a drink and fall over and comics and go to a nightclub, or not nightclub, but go to a late drinking place after a gig if you're staying over and what have you. But then you get on a train coming back from Manchester on Sunday in absolute pieces, and your young kids are there and you've missed them, and your wife's kind of going, "You're a dickhead," So that's one of the reasons why I started a club, because I thought, and my wife does the cooking, she does the door, and all of our friends, a lot of them are volunteers who are high earning individuals, and they love to throw a cloth over their shoulder and work behind the bar or do the food, or people really want to help comics and comedy clubs. Tap in on it. But sorry, long answer, probably not even the right answer.
That's a good answer. Listen, thank you so much for coming on and chatting. It's been super interesting to find out about the industry, which I knew literally nothing before, it would seem.
Well, and I'm just going to mention, you came to Stow Mary's, the pub,
yes,
Prince of Wales,
yes,
in the village of Stow Mary's, which is a bizarre. It's like the deep south of America, I think, full of rednecks, and it is absolutely bandit territory down there. And the guy that runs that passionately just loves his comedy. And every year we put on a festival for Edinburgh previews, and we pay the comics very well to do this, and to do this whole day of shows free to the public. And this year we're aiming to go into the field next door and put a stage up and make it much bigger.
Wow. And
we're going to a couple of TV names. I don't like doing a lot of TV names because they don't need it. They're already there,
Yeah.
So we're doing that on the first Sunday, 1st of August. And then I'm negotiating with a very posh wedding venue for the bank holiday August to put 3 days of comedy on. And that's going to be very big names and stuff, but terrifying sums of money, which makes me wake up in the middle of the night, genuinely big sums of money. But I'm booking that, and trying to do little opening other clubs around me that I'm going to do, and make a little sort of team of people that we're just going to roll it out and just give more work to comics and more gigs for punters to come to, and all that sort of thing. And that's what gets me up in the morning, just to go, right, where now? I'm going to focus on this town. I'm going to try and find a venue in this town and find a team that's going to drive out there and make people laugh.
I mean, it sounds great, and I wish you all the best of luck with it. And where can people sort of find out about all of your gigs and your clubs? Website or social medias?
PaddyLennox.com, PADDYLENNOX will take you to the list of. There's a whole raft of gigs that haven't gone up yet. They haven't gone live, but they're about to go live, and they'll all be on there. They'll all be there. But we've got the Prince of Wales Stow Mary's gig. I'm just looking at my wall calendar. 19th of May is the first one, and we've got a very big telly name. I'm not allowed to say who he is. But he's got a big tour coming up, and he did it at Christmas. And
I'm not going to say it, but I know who it is. I'm not going to say it.
It's and last time he did it at Christmas, he is the prime of his life.
He was super popular down there. Everybody was talking about it.
He's coming back, and he just texted me today, and I wish I could say his name, because I want to say to people, and afterwards, I might tell you who it is or whatever, but if you get a chance to see him on his tour, he is on fire. He is, parents, anyone can go and see this guy, and he is just a joy. Anyway.
Well, thanks again, Paddy. I super appreciate your time, and it was great chatting.
Hey, thank you very much. And go well.